It was February 13th, the night before Valentine's Day. I was working a late shift as a courier in a city I had only moved to a few months prior. It was cold, foggy, and the streets were unusually quiet for a Friday night. Around 11 p.m., I received a notification for a private delivery. The pay was triple my usual rate, but there was a catch. The drop-off wasn't a restaurant or a store. It was a hand-to-hand exchange at a public park. Normally, I would have declined, but the money was too good to pass up. When I arrived at the North Ridge Park, the fog was so thick I could barely see the hood of my car. My headlights cut through the mist, illuminating a lone figure sitting on a stone bench near the entrance. It was a man, wearing a long trench coat and a wide-brimmed hat that obscured his face. I pulled up, rolled down my window just an inch, and asked, "Are you the one who requested the pickup?" He didn't speak. He just stood up slowly and walked toward my car. My heart started to race. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small, beautifully wrapped red box with a white ribbon. He handed it through the gap in my window. His hands were shaking, and his skin was deathly pale. "Deliver this to 1422 Holloway Drive," he whispered. His voice sounded like sandpaper. "Do not leave it on the porch. You must knock until she answers. Tell her it's from her secret admirer." Before I could ask for a name or a contact number, he turned and disappeared into the fog. I looked at the box. It felt strangely heavy for its size. I shrugged off the weirdness, entered the address into my GPS, and drove off. 1422 Holloway Drive was a secluded house at the end of a long wooded driveway. There were no lights on inside. I walked up to the door and knocked. No answer. I remembered the man's instructions: knock until she answers. I knocked again, louder this time. After a few minutes, a light flickered on upstairs. A woman in her late 20s, looking exhausted and terrified, opened the door just a crack. "I have a delivery for you," I said, trying to sound as professional as possible. "From a secret admirer." The moment she saw the red box, the color drained from her face. She didn't take it. Instead, she started to cry. "Please," she whispered, "please tell me where you got that." I told her about the man in the park. She grabbed my arm and pulled me inside, locking the door behind me. She was trembling so hard she could barely stand. "My boyfriend, he was obsessed with Valentine's Day, but he died in a car accident 3 years ago. Every year since then, on February 13th, someone delivers a gift to my house. The police said it was a prank, but look at the box." She pointed to the white ribbon. I looked closer. There was a faint brownish stain on the fabric. It looked like old blood. "I never open them. I just throw them away. But this year, the address on the delivery app. How did he know my new address? I moved here 2 weeks ago. No one knows I'm here." At that moment, my phone buzzed. It was a message from the delivery app. My blood turned to ice. It was from the man who gave me the box. It read, "Thank you for letting me in." I looked at the woman, then at the box on the table. Then I looked at the hallway behind her. In the shadows of the kitchen, I saw a pair of muddy shoes, the same shoes the man in the park was wearing. He hadn't stayed in the park. He had followed me. Or worse, he had been waiting in her house before I even arrived, and he used me to get her to unlock the front door. I grabbed the woman's hand, and we ran out the back door screaming for help. We spent the night at the police station. When the officers searched the house, they found the red box on the table, opened. Inside was a single withered rose and a Polaroid photo. The photo was taken from inside her bedroom, showing her asleep in her bed, dated just 1 hour before I arrived. The man was never found, But every time I see a red box with a white ribbon, I quit my job all over again. It was Valentine's Day, and like every other single person, I was on Tinder. After weeks of swiping, I finally matched with Sophie. She was beautiful, had a sharp sense of humor, and most importantly, she lived only 3 blocks away. We agreed to skip the crowded restaurants and just have a quiet drink at her place. She sent me her address, Parkview Apartments, room 4B. I arrived around 8 p.m. The building was one of those old pre-war walk-ups with creaky floors and dim lighting. I took the stairs to the 4th floor. When I reached door 4B, I noticed it was slightly ajar. A warm yellow light was spilling out into the hallway. "Sophie?" I called out, knocking gently. "In the kitchen," a voice called back. It didn't sound exactly like her voice notes, but I figured it was just the acoustics of the old apartment. "Make yourself at home. The wine is on the table." I walked in. The place was cozy, lit entirely by candles. There were rose petals on the floor leading to a small dining table set for 2. I sat down and poured a glass of wine. I felt a bit nervous but excited. This was going better than I expected. "Just a second, I'm just finishing the snacks," she shouted from the kitchen. As I waited, I looked around the room. On the sideboard, there was a framed photo. I picked it up, expecting to see Sophie. Instead, it was a photo of an elderly couple. Then I noticed another photo, a family with small children. A cold shiver ran down my spine. The apartment didn't look like a 24-year-old girl lived there. It looked like a family home. I checked my phone to reread the address, 114 West Street, room 4B. Wait, my GPS showed I was at 114 East Street. I had gone to the wrong building. The door had been open and I just walked in. But then, who was the woman in the kitchen, and why did she act like she was expecting me? I stood up to leave quietly, but the floorboard creaked loudly. The kitchen door opened. A woman walked out. She wasn't Sophie. She wasn't even young. She was in her late 50s, wearing a stained apron and holding a large kitchen knife. She stopped and looked at me. Her eyes were wide, vacant, and completely terrifying. "You're not Marcus," she whispered. "I'm so sorry," I stammered, backing toward the door. "I have the wrong building. I'm in the wrong apartment." "No," she said, her voice becoming low and distorted. "Marcus always comes on Valentine's Day. He promised. He's just late." She stepped closer, and I saw her other hand. She was holding a man's wallet. It was old, worn, and had a bullet hole through the center. "Sit down," she commanded, raising the knife. "You shouldn't have come in if you weren't going to stay. My husband hates it when people leave before dessert." She looked over my shoulder toward the dark corner of the living room. "Don't you, Marcus?" I didn't look back. I didn't care if there was a ghost, a corpse, or just her imagination in that corner. I turned and sprinted for the door. I heard her heavy footsteps behind me and the sound of the knife hitting the wooden door frame just as I slammed it shut. I ran down the 4 flights of stairs and didn't stop until I hit the street. I called the police from a block away. When they arrived, they found the woman sitting at the table talking to an empty chair. The apartment belonged to a family that was away on vacation. The woman was a local transient who had broken in earlier that day. But the part that still keeps me up at night? The police found a second place setting under the table. There was a pair of handcuffs attached to the chair leg. She wasn't waiting for her husband. She was waiting for anyone who was stupid enough to walk through an unlocked door on a lonely night. I don't go on blind dates anymore, and I always check the street sign twice.